Actually, they say most accidents on the road happen within 60 minutes of having your food. I think I've got the death slot right now, exactly 60 minutes after food. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So basically, I'm here to talk about how is it that cloud computing actually will enable e-governance for good governance. So I heard a news story from the IT Secretary, Mr. Rajesh Agrawal, that the way in which you do e-governance is you try to eliminate governance. So it's a new learning for all of us, and we'll try to eliminate as many unimportant things and go ahead with the most serious matters. So typically e-governance comes from the 5 core principles which the IT Secretary talked about. But if you look at it, what is it that makes the scale so huge? There are 35 states and union territories in India, almost 3.3 million square kilometers of territory to cover, 1.2 plus billion citizens, 19 million plus government employees, and a GDP of 1.5 trillion. All this is actually huge. So anything that you do in IT is going to have a massive scale. Whether making the government more accessible for the citizens, or facilitating social inclusion, or providing information responsibly, or even using the state's resources effectively and more efficiently. So whatever you do, anything that you do in terms of building services is going to be massive. And when you have anything massive this size, you really need to plan and do it properly. So typically the IT infrastructure used to be a set of applications being hosted in a place for the employees or for the citizens. And this used to be managed in a very efficient way, or that's what we used to think. As and when the computing models improved, you realize that you could go into a cloud, you could deliver services by virtualizing certain services and delivering it from the existing hardware. So all this meant that you will give it as and when the citizen demands those services. 10 years ago, how many of you would have actually imagined that when you pick up a phone, the phone would actually work? A lot of us used to curse the existing service provider. But today it is given, it's given for granted that when you pick up the phone, it really works. How many of you are actually using, as the IT Secretary said, how many, that most of the treasury applications have moved away from checks and have moved into electronic payment. How many of you have actually visited your bank branch in the last few years? I, for one, haven't seen my bank branch for the last 5 years. I can walk into any branch, get any service from any ATM. It's all virtual for me. It doesn't matter. The same concept now extends into the IT world. So what are the things that are actually making this possible? You've got cloud computing, you've got mobile applications. What I see on my desktop, I want to see it on my iPad, I want to see it on my mobile phone, which is probably on Android. I want the same look and feel because I don't need to get trained separately for all these things. And more applications are moving towards the social media and social communications. So gone are the days when the Oracles and the SAPs would be the prime applications. Video is an extremely key driver for these things. The city surveillance projects, just imagine the amount of video being captured by 6,000 cameras across in the city of Mumbai. That runs into petabytes. Where are they storing it? Are you really bothered about where it's being stored? Because at the end of the day, if I put things on the cloud, it's supposed to be as simple as possible at the front end. All the complexity runs at the back end, and what they do at the back end should not matter to the end user. How is it that the government is going to benefit from the cloud value proposition? End of the day, everyone wants to increase the productivity for the employee and for the citizen. I need to be assuring the citizens that I will deliver a service in a given point in time. If I have a commitment of being able to deliver a particular service in 15 minutes, I should either do it in less than 15 minutes or say that, sorry, I can't deliver this service within the time frame. I need to have a rapid go-to-market. For example, if there is an application or there is a service which is supposed to give out the results after your class 10 examinations, at that time I need to use those services. At the rest of the year, for the balance 360 odd days, that particular set of hardware and the application is not going to be used at all. So I need to have an application which can be rolled out immediately in less than 15 minutes if required. End of the day, I also need to be green. I need to save on resources, because all these computers, all these servers that you put in, however they may be efficient, still consume electricity, still consume the AC that you need to provide, because they generate so much of heat. The more and more you put in terms of the compute, the more heat it generates, which means you need to provide more cooling. So how do I reduce all those things? And end of the day, everyone wants unlimited capacity. I want to be scaling up like this. When the IPL match is happening, the websites have much higher number of hits. Rest of the 10 months, that's it. I need to go down and be able to serve some other customer. So if you look at it, virtualization and cloud actually go hand in hand, and there are a lot of techniques that are used to deliver these services across multiple devices to the end user. I'm going to make it as complicated as possible for you guys. I'm finally a system integrator. I'm in the business to make money by reducing your complexity. So whenever you move from a traditional IT into a cloud model, there is a lot of complexity which you need to take care. Then you may need to port applications, you may need to migrate certain applications, you may need to retire certain applications, you may need to develop new applications. And at the end of the day, I need to take care of any compliance issues that may be there. So as an organization, Wipro is actually capable of delivering all these things to you. Whether it's a greenfield setup, whether it's a transformational setup, or whether I need to integrate cloud into an existing setup, or whether I need to set up a public cloud. We also provide advisory services for setting up clouds. How does it work for the SDC? As pointed out from the morning, when you have a lot of hardware running in your system, it depends on how you are able to optimize the amount of hardware and run more and more applications. That happens when you virtualize. So if you look at it, finally, there is a core service automation and management that happens. There is some amount of security management I need to ensure, because two different departments need to be kept out. They don't want to be seeing each other's data. I need to take care of the network management. I need to take care of the storage management. And finally, I need to take care of the monitoring and delivering of the service levels, as pointed out by the gentleman a few minutes ago. All this is something which we can take care in a simple solution. So if you look at it, the primary purpose of the cloud computing is to ensure that I have a viable hybrid model, so that I can use the resources that I have today, and as and when needed, I can borrow from somebody else. So that model is something which is going to be extremely crucial, and more governments today are talking in terms of being able to deliver this to their citizens. So there are multiple ways in which you can embrace a cloud. One is going in with an application-led approach. The other is with an infrastructure-led approach. Both of them have their own pluses and minuses. And finally, you also want to ensure that whatever you do, you have business agility, you have standardization in whatever you do, you are able to simplify the process, and finally you achieve the variabilization. By that I mean, whatever you do, I need to have that scale wherein I'm able to deliver the services in the format that the citizen wants. This service orientation is actually going to be very critical. Now, whether it is a citizen of your state who is going to use it, or whether it's an employee of the state who is going to use that service, there is a lot of complexity that happens at the back end. As Sir was pointing out a few minutes ago, there are certain applications which are disk intensive. There are certain applications which are compute intensive. There are some which will just use your disk in terms of storing data. There are some applications which will be network bandwidth intensive, and there are some which are transaction oriented. You need to segregate these applications in various buckets and distribute the load accordingly, and ensure that if there are two or more applications which are network bandwidth intensive, you don't put them on the same set of servers or the same set of network ports and then get choked. You have to have that basic intelligence in terms of understanding how that application works and be able to segregate it. End of the day, what runs in the back end, inside the data center, is something which your citizen or your employee will not bother. For him, it should be as simple as picking up a phone and being able to hear a dial tone. So, end of the day, whenever you do this, what is going on at the back end inside the data center, whether it is 30 servers or 50 servers or 150 servers being used, they want that service to be available when they want it. And that is the critical part of delivering the cloud services. Over the next few years, if you look at it, more and more the discrete applications are going to come down and the cloud applications are going to go up. But this also means that there are going to be some key focus areas for the state. One is they need to refresh and repurpose the existing assets. Because certain more technologies will come in which will allow you to do a little bit more management, and all those things will come in. But do I get rid of a server which I bought 2 years ago? Maybe you're paid about 10 lakh rupees for that server. Do I get rid of it? Maybe the answer is no. The idea is, how do I utilize the existing assets? How do I redeploy them? How do I repurpose them? Maybe things which I was using in the web layer, I move them into the app layer, or I move them into the web layer and have a new set of servers into the database. So maybe that is how you try to reuse existing equipment. There is always a skill refresh that is required, because when you're doing these things, the traditional mindset of I want to see my server under my nose will not work. So you need to plan it in such a way that your IT staff are skill refreshed and they have enough role changes to understand how this thing works. You will also get into complexity in terms of vendor and product portfolio management. As it was pointed out, how do I take care of the licensing for multiple operating systems within the same setup? How do I license the database? So you need to plan for these things, ensure that you have enough dialogue with the particular product supplier, and work it out in such a way that you reduce your cost. It is not easy. One particular operating system vendor says, however be the number of virtual machines that you use, you need to license every particular virtual machine. The database vendor may particularly come and say, I will not allow you to partition, I need you to license all cores. The idea is, how do you strike a balance between those? That is critical, and that is something which you need to understand. Retooling of applications, I think my friends here who spoke before me spoke about it a lot. End of the day, when you need to split this, and when you want to move across to the other cloud or to somebody else's public cloud, will your application support those sort of things? So that retooling of applications is very critical. Data and information management, I think we have spoken about it since the morning. Very critical. There are certain data which cannot leave the Indian boundary. So you need to plan it in such a way that that particular law is not misused or law is not broken. And finally, you need to work in an ecosystem wherein your system integrator who manages the hardware, your application vendor who's developed your application, and your cloud service provider actually work together in a team to ensure that you succeed. Otherwise, if even one of the links fail, you will not be in a situation to deploy whatever you are looking at. One slide in terms of what is it that Wipro is doing in Maharashtra. We have offices in about 5 or 6 locations in Maharashtra. We are the current application vendor and the system integrator for Maharashtra CCTNS. We are also the vendor who's deployed the Maharashtra State Data Center, and we are managing it. We are also consulting for the Agricultural Produce and Marketing Committee. And we are application vendors in the Maharashtra Water Resources Department. So if you look at it, there is a reasonable amount of investment that Wipro has made into the state of Maharashtra in terms of people, in terms of projects, and in terms of skills. And all these things go into helping the local administration work out in terms of how is it that we can take it to the next generation, whether it is from a single server implementation into a cloud implementation to whichever way. So it's quite a complex system wherein you really need to integrate a lot of things and deliver the SLAs which are required. Finally, one last slide about Wipro. These are figures as of March 31st. About $5.2 billion in terms of revenue. About 953 partners across the globe. Roughly about, at last count, about 136,000 employees, out of which maybe about 14 or 15,000 are based in Maharashtra. We are in the top 25 list of companies, and we are present in about 54 countries. And I'm through with my slide deck. Any questions, I will be happy to answer.